voice.
All right. I believe we are live. Welcome to the Wildheart Podcast, where passion meets purpose.
Yep.
Today's podcast episode is
Seasons of Learning, Embracing Nature's Classroom.
So basically the rough idea is adapting to homeschooling in the rhythm of the seasons and kind of embracing the unique opportunities to learn in each season. So right now we're trailing off winter. It's kind of deceitfully going into spring. I don't trust.
Been a weird winter.
Yeah, I don't trust it's going to be fully spring, but I think we're going to cycle back to winter.
Well, they are calling for snow tomorrow, so we'll see.
What have you been doing for the last couple of weeks? I feel like, short of turning this into a book podcast.
I have been reading.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I've been working on my herbalism diploma and got one course for sure under my belt. I got a couple of other courses that I've been working on. And then also too, I was a little, I don't know what you want to say. I had a moment of somewhere along, okay. I get ads for things for Procreate all the time. Procreate is an app that you draw things in on the iPad. And so I get ads for different classes and stuff and courses for them. And I'm like, every time I see one, I'm like, nah, I'm not talented enough. So I had an awareness the other day where somewhere in my lifetime, I have had one or multiple people, I don't know, people that I felt were authorities or places of trust, tell me that I was not good enough at drawing, and therefore that shut down my creativity, and that is why I believe that I'm not good enough at drawing. So I decided I was going to purchase a course, and I'm going to do it. So
and as a FU to anybody who's told you couldn't.
Kind of, but also too because this course is I'm going to teach you how to draw things much better in Procreate. I'm like, I can go from what I have now to just a little bit better, and it'll still be better than I was last time. Or
progress, not perfection.
Freaking amazing by the end of the course, and you never know.
Either is a good possibility.
Mm-hmm. What have you been doing? How was your life?
I've been doing a lot of side work. I do side work. I work in construction as well. I'm an electrician, but it's one of those things where it's not completely steady all the time, but there's always something to do by somebody, and there's always a backlog. So trying to break away from family for an evening or two is always is always one of the challenges. You don't want to, once I get in the rhythm of things, sometimes I just want to I'll just finish this off and it'll be done. But there's always something more. So it's one of those things I'm kind of balancing. Okay, one a week, one every 2 weeks. Just trying to make sure the home life is balanced between work life. As I still work full time, and beyond that, doing side work is great. But at the same time, kids will only be young ones, so it's just making sure to balance everything out. That way there's no regrets in life.
Mm-hmm.
So
as minimal regrets as possible.
Yeah. You've also taken some R&R time for yourself, and just resets, and obviously you can talk about your book if you want.
There's only so I'm R&R and reset I can take at this moment, as our son is he'll be 8 months next week. So I can't, I'm still nursing, so I can't just disappear for
Run
long
off
periods of
into
time.
the wilderness.
But time will come when I can just be like, you know what? Peace out, I'm going to the spa, or whatever I want to do. I don't know, probably go run into the forest and become the wild witch of the forest for a while.
A side note, speaking of witches, this podcast will turn into a pumpkin in under 30 minutes because we have banana bread baking in the oven. So we might just run upstairs and take the banana bread so it doesn't burn. But we'll see. We might wrap.
Will be running. It would be you would be running. Or,
well,
I could
I feel
run
like
too.
you'd be the one running because I can't, like, get out. You're blocked. There's a wall here. Yeah, anyway. Logistics say you run.
You have to ninja jump over your chair.
Backflip. Let's get into
That would be
today's
impressive.
topic.
Cool.
So,
Where do you wanna go
embracing
with that?
nature's classroom during the winter season. We've been doing a few activities, and we're going out to the wilderness this weekend.
Cozy wilderness of a cabin.
Well, cozy it's still in the bush.
Yeah.
I have a couple activities planned. I've been promising our daughter watching the sunrise, and it's literally just going to be wake up early, get to a nice spot where we could watch the sunrise and just watch it.
Probably the lake.
Yeah, I imagine that's going to be the spot, but we'll see how cold it is. We might do it outside, might do it inside. We'll bring some sleeping bags. Could just pull down the tailgate, sit on the back of the truck.
Huddle together,
Yeah.
have a hot bevy.
Yeah, bring some hot chocolate in a thermos.
Yeah.
We should bring a thermos. Something fun, family activity like that. Another activity, and like obviously with that to bring it around to homeschooling, like just talk about the seasons, talk about the solar system, talk about how the tilt of the earth works in winter and summer. She has a lot of that. Like she was pointing out on the globe, Papa, do you know where it's cold? She points to Antarctica and Arctic. It's just, she's like already kind of knows the globe, and she understands where we live on the globe, in a rough sense. Like she could point to where we live on the globe, like to the city, and it's pretty impressive that 4-year-olds can do that, I would say. But at the same time, just to take that one step further and just kind of every time we've been driving around, I've been focusing a lot on the directions, so the northwest, east, south, and just kind of what they mean, and which, in the truck it's easy because the mirror shows which direction we're driving.
Yeah.
But just in the concept of where the sun rises and sets, and maybe lead that into some form of navigation, but not in one lesson necessarily, but just as building on these little things so that you have a starting point, you could build up from there. Did you see the birdseed I bought?
I did see the birdseed.
Do you have any ideas for that?
We're gonna coat me in birdseed and send me out, and I'm gonna get covered in birds.
Well, that's one thing you could do. Or yeah,
birds.
Yeah, and
the last time I did that with her, she was not having any of it.
No, birds are freaky when they fly at you, though. I'm not a big fan of birds flying at me. I don't think we can have a pet bird.
I don't want
in the house.
Pet
I'll
bird.
say
They stink. Anyways, I digress. That's always a fun one too, because then you can teach about the different types of birds.
Today we learned about how they're ancestors of dinosaurs. Yeah, that was a good one.
This is a random aside, but you know what she's telling me today. We were watching, there was like a video that came up on Instagram, and it was about like this really cute like sea slug that looks like it has leaves on it. I don't know, I can't remember the name of it. And then we got onto the reels of all these sea creatures, and she showed me this fish, and she's like, Mama, do you know how fish breathe? And I was like, oh, please enlighten me. And I guess you guys have watched a video of it, and she was explaining to me how the fish breathe through their gills. It was super cute. I'm like, it was one of those things where like, I never taught you this, and yet you're regurgitating knowledge, and I'm like, and I love this.
I mean, I've been really liking there's TED Ed videos. They've been really good for just like late evening. They're literally like 5 minutes, 6 minutes at most, and like it's perfect for just watching a couple like really informative interesting, I would say, well, like articulated for children, and just base concepts. Just, hey, birds are ancestors of dinosaurs, and it kind of goes through the whole thing, or how fish go and so forth. But
Yeah.
that's a good evening activity.
I know too, for winter you guys have been doing like snowboarding and like more physical activities. Lots of
When
baking.
we have snow.
Yeah, when we have snow. Lots of baking, which is,
Yes.
you can use baking to teach chemistry and science, measuring, math, things like that. So, but I don't really think we haven't really done too much winter-y concepts. Going into spring, though, right around now we can start looking at like starting certain seeds
Yes.
that we want to have in our garden. And actually, we had last year at the end of the season, we had 4 caterpillars that went into cocoons, and the hope was that they would overwinter in our house, and then in the springtime, when the sunlight starts coming in a little bit longer and it's more warm outside, that they would emerge from their cocoons and be free.
Nice.
We've had two come out of the cocoons. One was
things.
Hold on. Yes. One was a butterfly. It actually surprisingly lived 7 days, which for a black swallowtail butterfly, it's about 7 to 10 days is like their average. During that, we were able to, teach about what butterflies eat, kind of like the life cycle of the butterfly. Inevitably, it passed away because the butterfly doesn't live very long. So then we switched gears, and I was able to sort of show her how to preserve a butterfly. So we have that going. And then the second thing that emerged was actually a Torgus wasp, I think it was called.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And that was interesting. So then we got to teach about, then I got to explain to our daughter about like the parasitic nature of this wasp and what happens and how that works. And
it's very interesting because literally the day before that happened, we going back to the TED Ed stuff. We were talking about parasitic birds that lay their eggs in other birds' nests and how that it's a evolutionary trait, and how some birds deal with it and some don't notice and some do notice, and how the bird it's very interesting how that worked out.
Yeah, very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's another thing about going right into spring with the seeds and everything. You could also talk about the weather patterns and just the different, obviously how things get warmer. There's more rainfall, how you can measure rainfall, wind speed, and just different meteorological aspects of the world. I could cloud patterns and so forth. Now that it's not just going to be snow and blizzard, there's going to be diversity of weather patterns a little bit more. Then going into summer.
Yeah, summer's kind of a little bit more fun because you're outside a lot more and things like that. We could also, just going back with spring, just briefly, we could also talk about migration. With animals. We could do that in fall as well, but for example, we're going to start seeing the geese come back within the next couple of months.
Yep. We live in Canada. Canada geese are a big thing here.
Yeah, those assholes.
They stop traffic and a lot of other things. But
yeah,
it's quite interesting to just migration in general. It's a great topic because
it's good to know.
Yeah, we learned about that today actually as well. Funny enough, bird migrations and how birds. What is it? They can lose like a % of their body fat every 30 minutes or something while flying, and it's like up to a 7-week journey for some, and just all the different factors that affect birds in their migratory patterns from development to sky rises. There's like billions of birds that get killed by skyscrapers, supposedly. But anyways.
Summer.
Summer, we get to start looking into, we actually get to go out. Maybe we'll have a few late nights and look at stars, start looking at constellations, phases of the moon. You can do that at
any time, but the constellations in summer versus constellations in winter can vary depending on where you are.
It's more practical in the summer because it's warmer.
Well, you just have to fend
if you
off
want
the
to
mosquitoes.
if you want to stay outside in -40 looking at the stars, yeah, it's possible. It's just
the Northern Lights are wonderful.
Yeah, I mean Northern Lights happen in the summer too, though.
This was one thing. I know we're jumping ahead, but this was one thing that I never realized growing up, that Northern Lights happen all year round.
Yeah.
But because of winter and how it gets darker sooner, and the way that the something to do with the way that Earth tilting and things like that, it actually affects how far down, like how far south the lights come. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we don't necessarily get privy to it all the time, but yeah, you will see the Northern Lights across
everywhere.
All of the time frame.
Across the entire 4 seasons.
Yeah, it's just you see it more often because you would start seeing it around, 8, 9, 10 p.m. as opposed to like later on at night. Granted, though, most of the Northern Light enthusiasts that I'm aware of tend to go out for like 1 to 3 because around
1 in the morning.
Yeah, 2 o'clock-ish is apparently the best time to see them.
Top 10 things we won't be doing with kids.
This is a random side tangent. I'm apologizing for taking us on this journey. But there are so many different factors and like things to be aware of. Like you need to know about the solar winds, what's your cloud cover, what...
solar flares.
Well, solar winds would be the solar flares, right?
Okay.
The KP levels, KPA, I don't know, whatever. This
KPA.
is way over my head. I just, like, there's a group I'm a part of, and I just wait for the whole, today is the best day to go. And I'm like, all right, if I want to take pictures of the lights, I'm going tonight. We have, like, a whole, like, they call it a pants-on thread, because you want to have your pants on so that you can dash out the door if you're ready to go.
Roger.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of funny.
I always have my pants on.
Oh, dear.
Water
Anyways,
science.
Summertime.
Exploring bodies of water is a good, obviously with swimming, again, physical activity for swimming. You get, the different, you get to examine the different types of water, whether it's streams, rivers, lakes, bogs, things like that. We have a little microscope, so we could start doing some water testing, looking at
the little amiibos.
Exactly.
Or amiibos. Amiibos.
Amiibos, yes, the Nintendo amiibos in the water.
The amoebas.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, obviously this is just the tip of the iceberg in the summer activities. But it's one of those, we're just touching on a few things for this podcast. If you have any of your things that you'd like to do in these seasons, let us know. Comments, so on and so forth.
One thing, too, is, like, we can also look at the little tiny, well, they're not tiny, but, like, tadpoles growing into frogs and, like, stages of life for aquatic creatures. We'll see geese having babies and raising them throughout the summer.
Circle of life.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And then obviously growing. We'll be growing things during the summer. So there's the taking care of plants and the harvesting of plants. And as we get closer and closer into the fall seasons, there will be obviously the final couple of harvests that we'll have. I'm not sure exactly what we're growing this season or this year, but we'll probably have some tomatoes and peppers are generally what we pick up, and we'll have my herbs and stuff to harvest as well.
Maybe we should do that next podcast, is kind of figure out our seeds that we're doing.
Sure.
Maybe give a little run through of how we plant and prep and sprout our seeds ahead of time.
I throw them haphazardly into the garden.
Excuse me. I'm wondering, because we a side note, I'm wondering if, because I have the aquaponics, and I have the bottom row of that as tomatoes that I've sprouted. I've realized the folly of planting tomatoes in with leafy greens because they'll never
flower.
They'll never flower because if you're putting the formula for leafy greens in, you'll only get the leafy greens growing and you won't get them flowering and vice versa. But anyway, that was a learning experience this winter, doing the first time hydroponics. But I'm wondering if I could take those sprouted tomatoes and just kind of
I don't see why not.
Garden.
You've sprouted them. It would be like...
The only logistical issue I could think of is because I used rock wool. I don't know how that kind of transplants into the garden, but we could just try it and see what happens.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Because you can't really just rip it apart because you'll just rip out the roots, but to be determined.
We'll figure it out.
If you have ideas, let me know.
Yeah. And then also, too, with like the whole harvesting of things, like we can look at the preserving of our foods. I know last year we had the unfortunate situation where our tomatoes got like shotgunned by hail. So we haphazardly, like really quickly figured out how to make salsa.
Yeah.
And we made some really decent salsa for our first go. So that was really good. And then our peppers, I think we dried most of them.
We still have a pile of our serrano peppers.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part was our tomatoes. It was just they were not super ripe. And
yeah.
The ones that did survive were shotguns. So it was when as I've mentioned before, when life when the sky shotguns your tomatoes, make salsa.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those, like, we should definitely make more of those tomatoes. I'd like to up our tomato game this year.
Yeah.
Because those tomatoes are delicious. Crim tomatoes.
Black
crim tomatoes. Delicious.
Yeah. And I think, too, with that as well, we kind of really quickly learned how to harvest and save the seeds. So we'll see. I think
I've tried 3 different methods of saving seeds. So we'll see maybe the germination. We'll do a little science experiment to see the most effective germination from those and see how that turns out.
Yeah, we can see that. Yeah, so that's quite a few things. And then obviously, with fall, you'll see the leaves changing colors. I think just in general, over the course of the year, we can go from like no leaves on the trees to budding leaves to full leafy greens, and then coming to fall, we can talk about how the trees lose their leaves and how, like why that happens and what's going on. You can talk about the different types of trees. So we've got like the pine tree in the backyard, but then in the front we've got like the, I believe they're deciduous trees with the leaves, and why the pine trees don't lose their leaves, but like these ones do.
Yep.
Yeah. We can talk about building, in terms of like herbalism. I could start looking at making an herbal blend for boosting immunity, because we'd be getting into, the cold and
flu season. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about incorporating things that you do on the daily basis in the seasons anyway, that are other than, your entertainment things. Things that you might do around a homestead, for example, and incorporating them and teaching them to your kids in a practical way, just by doing them, is really, at the end of the day, what you're doing, incorporating lessons whenever the opportunities present themselves, even if it's as simple as, we're doing... we're doing like directions of the compass today, or our daughter's been a big fan of playing shop, so we're doing math. Yes. I literally just quiz her on math all the time. I ask how much is this. She tells me what is in her shop. I kind of direct. Initially we started off with everything's $1. It's like, okay, well, if this is $1 and this is a bundle of grapes, it should be worth more than $1, right? It's like, oh yeah, then it's $2. Okay, so I want some grapes and 2 bananas. And it's like, if the 2 bananas are $1 each and the bundle of grapes is $2, how much is it? What's 2 plus 2? And she's developed really interesting ways of adding, actually, because we're playing with these foam letters and numbers, and she's discovered. Oh, there we go. So we're one of us has to run up and take a banana bread out of the oven.
You tell your story, even though I'm interested.
Okay. Long story short, I gotta turn this off so it's not going off. Anyway, so what she's done is she's taking foam letters, and she's discovered that you can count one stack of letters and numbers, put it beside another stack, and she recognizes that they're the same amount. So she can now multiply, essentially. So you have, she has 4 in the first stack. She puts it beside the next stack, and she goes, "That's also 4." And from there, she's still counting it, but she is multiplying by 4s. She's lined up multiple stacks of whatever the number, and she's recognized that they're all equivalent and multiplying them now. So it's really interesting. It's a really interesting way to physically show multiplication in a fun game-like way. Is just playing shop. So if you're looking for ways to introduce concepts, that's one way. And once my wife gets back, we'll touch base on a few more activities that you can do. I just explained, one of the ways to multiply, that our daughter's multiplying. But, let's go reflect a few takeaways. What's your favorite activity that you've done this winter?
One of the things that, it's not specific to winter, but one of the things that I really enjoyed doing is doing the interpretive programming through one of our provincial parks. Mm-hmm. Every month, once, I think it's it's one day a month, they do a preschool, program for, I think it's about an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. No, I don't know why I'm looking at you. You've never attended. But it's it's about an hour and a half, and it's a combination of in classroom learning, we'll say, where they teach a concept. It's usually through play and through song, and then after we've kind of taught the concept, they do a little craft to help hammer it home, and then after we have a little bit of a snack, they go and we do a walk. It's been really nice to kind of get out. First of all, you're meeting other people who are, most of which I would guess are also homeschooling. But then, you're also having these conversations with people who are, in the same age range as you, so there's that socialization piece. And then we go on a walk, and that walk is through a trail, it's like a trail in the park. It's a less frequented trail, so you see a lot more animal prints, and you see different things. And the lady who does the interpretive programming, she is well versed with everything that's in that park. So you got a question about what's this herb, or what is this thing over here? She will talk to you about all the different things you can find in the park, which is kind of my sneaky way of tell me all the things that I can find and harvest in this park. Also tell me where to find them. And then, she'll talk to you about the animal prints, and so there's this broader sense of learning. Mm-hmm. And it's really nice to see, first of all, we started attending these, I think in August. It was August or September we started attending, I can't remember, and we've been going every month since then. It's been really nice to watch our daughter, first of all, kind of adapt to this, because this is new. She doesn't really know anyone. Mm-hmm. She's quite a guarded person. She doesn't really like to, be in everyone's face. Takes her a little bit of time to kind of warm up to people.
That's okay.
Which, not a problem at all. And it's been really nice, because now she sees consistency in the people that are there. We usually have at least Like, there's like 4 kids that we usually see consistently. And then, of course, the instructor is the same throughout. So she's starting to warm up, and she's actually starting to, like, answer questions. Like, when the instructor's like, oh, so, like, last time we were learning about camouflage. So we were like, oh, where would you find a polar bear or whatever? And she's like, oh, in the Arctic, in the snow. It was just really cute to see her answer things. Yeah, so that's probably one of my favorite things that I like to do. And it's nice because these are all nature-based conversations that we're having, or like learnings that we're having, which is perfect because that adds that additional, bit of learning about nature that, we're not providing at home. But it's also, as we've tried before, it kind of gives us a basis to, kind of build upon, right? Like we built upon like the camouflage stuff. You can kind of hammer that home a little bit further. I talk about the tree because we did, I think one of the first ones we did, the very first one we did was actually about trees and how trees live and grow and they lose their leaves and all this stuff. And we did leaf rubbings and she loved that. Like that was like the coolest thing ever. So yeah, like just, I like doing that because it kind of gets us out and it gets us into, meeting other people nature. And also getting out
socialization. I think my favorite activity this winter has been snowboarding because it's obviously a personal favorite of mine, and just kind of seeing her develop confidence in her own ability. And she like every season you shake off the rust from the previous, and you kind of progress from there. And last year she was just kind of learning how to get up on the board and go down. This year she's a lot more consistent. She could get up on her own. She just scoots down the hill. And like the turning isn't there yet, but she's perfectly capable of getting up on her own from sitting. In fact, she insists on doing it herself now, like no help, and then going down. And like she'll be silly and scoot down on her bum sometimes, and so but it's just seeing her progress in that skill is, and just encouraging her, because there's definitely times where she'll get discouraged because snow down the gloves is a very big issue. But just dealing with snow and in different places, whether it's your face or down your shirt or up your gloves, and just kind of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is a big theme I found this year. It's just like, what is it hurts right now, or it's uncomfortable right now. Okay, let's wait 10 seconds, 30 seconds. Is it still as uncomfortable, or did it get better? And it's just almost like a big lesson I'm kind of driving home, is that nothing is permanent in that sense. Like things change with time. Sometimes all you need to do is just give it a little bit of time, and it'll get better. Like it's uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable is okay.
Yeah, she has a very small tolerance for being uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, I'm pushing it, not to the detriment of not wanting to go snowboarding anymore, but sometimes we just go down once, and that's all she has for that day, and that's okay too. Try not to push too hard, but at the same time, still pushing to a certain extent where she can grow. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say too, like, I think her experience with like the gymnastics and the dance and stuff like that, I think that's been helping her with her balance and her movements, which has been, you can kind of, you take those same concepts and apply them into different physical activities, right? Like you can use that balance in snowboarding.
Absolutely.
So, the more she has confidence in moving her body in however ways she is, then yeah, she's gonna apply that in other areas as well. And
like, again, climbing wall, all the things that we set up over here. You see the little triangle. There's a tunnel behind it, and just making a whole circuit in the basement for her to run around and just get some energy
stepping
out.
Stones for her to balance and run on. Well, maybe not run, but
yeah, I mean, these are all things that you could get on a budget as well. So, that about wraps things up, I would say. Have any final thoughts on
Yeah, like I think in terms of final thoughts, like, I mean, homeschooling is a very personal experience. Everyone kind of homeschools differently. There are people who want to take the school's curriculum and just teach it at home, and then there's other people who like throw out curriculum altogether and are like, we're just completely unschooling, which I'm not opposed to. We can. Yeah. I have a way of an idea of how I want to homeschool, which works for us, I think.
And initially, when I started like looking into everything, the Montessori stuff grabbed me quite a bit, and I like the concept of Montessori and just I'll call it their curriculum as well, just how it's hands-on opposed to everything else. But
so I think like the main thing with the seasons is like you don't have to go big for your curriculum. You don't have to go big to have these major concepts. You can literally look, at least for sure for the elementary school ages, you can look at what's around you. Take inspiration from nature. Like we said, you can talk about the trees. And the trees, you can learn about like
how they pull nutrients from the ground.
Well, yeah, and you can learn about the chemistry and the biologies. You can look at the plant cells. Like, there's granted, cells might be a little bit... cellular, stuff might be a little bit too advanced for small children.
You do have a microscope, so,
I say that because I'm learning that I just did a biochem stuff, and I'm working on anatomy and physiology right now. So cells and stuff are right in my head right now.
It's all good.
But, like, you can take one concept of, like, the trees, and you can branch out. Like, think of all the things you can learn about trees. You can learn about, like what you were saying, the ecosystem, how they can be, how you can date trees, how you can, what lives in them, how do they help humanity in terms of, like, they pull in the CO2 and they pump out oxygen.
That was a note we hit today. I think it was today.
Yesterday, I think it was.
Yesterday.
At dinner.
Yeah, just talking about health. Anyway.
Yes, and their respiration.
Yeah.
And like stuff like that, like
photosynthesis. Their photosynthesis, respiration. Yeah. We respire. They photosynthesize.
They also respire, though.
Okay. Yeah. I stand corrected.
Yeah, and then like same thing with. Like, you can go about the different seasons and whatnot. Like, it doesn't have to be too crazy. I would say look at whomever it is that you're homeschooling. Or even if you just want to do this as fun, like, aside with your children.
Let the children lead. The one biggest thing I like about Montessori is it's child-led. And what is the kid interested in? Let that be the guide, because you're never going to teach something to a kid who doesn't want to learn, and you're never going to stop a kid from learning something they want to learn. So just going with that in mind is a major component, I would say, to our path in this kind of homeschooling journey is and to tease next episode, I think we could probably solidify and say it'll be seed starting, and we're probably going to get some seeds started, maybe do a little experiment this in the next couple weeks for starting seeds, figuring out what we're growing and how we could even do a whole layout of our garden and herbs. And
I gotta figure out what herbs I'm gonna grow this year.
Probably gonna reset my hydroponics I got downstairs here, because lessons were learned there. I'll probably talk about a little bit more of that in depth. If you're interested in gardening and preparing for the spring, just tune in in the next 2 weeks. We do it every 2 weeks. So every second Wednesday we're doing one of these. So tune in if you want to catch up with us.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for watching.
And
I know there's no one currently live that we can tell, but
in the future,
if you watch this in the future,
we
thank you too.
Future people, thank you. And have a good night.
Bye.